Progress.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the February 8th meeting of the Early Learning Board. We'll begin, as we always do, with sharing of the mission, which Megan McCorriston is going to do. Megan, are you here? I don't see her, do you? Okay. Since Megan's not here, I will go ahead and share the mission. To support children's academic and lifelong well-being by directing and supporting the EOEL for an effective, coordinated, high-quality early learning system from prenatal to kindergarten entry. As always, I request that you keep that in mind as we proceed with our deliberations today. We begin, first of all, by doing a roll call to ensure we have a quorum. Selma?
Aye. Here.
Thank you. Erin?
Present.
Okay, Iolani said she would be late. Megan? And Megan, are you here? Ben is absent today. May?
Here.
Peter's here. Napua?
Ew.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Here.
Thank you. Mari? Mari? See her? Carrie?
Here.
Okay, and Megan, I do see you, correct?
Everyone, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to do, is Dana Luca here? Anyone from the Department of Human Services? All right. Michelle is absent. Steve Schatz? Here. Thank you. Matt Shim?
Here.
Thank you. All right. We do have a quorum so that we can proceed. I'm going to make one shift in the agenda today. We're going to begin with the EOEL legislative bill tracking that's going on and updates because there are two hearings going on concurrently at two that Jordana needs to attend. So Jordana, would you give us an update on the legislation that you've been following?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So on this PowerPoint, I do have a link to a PDF version of the bills that we're tracking. There are quite a lot. So if anyone does want access to it, I can email it to you because it was uploaded to the Google Drive. But just a couple updates before we jump into legislation. So opening day began on January 17th. So we visited legislative offices after floor sessions were done to share some of our policy priorities and some further information for this upcoming session. It is a supplemental year, so we budget on a biennium, and that means that this is the second year of the biennium. So for our priority bills, we had 3 introduced actually. So 2 were introduced to the governor's administrative package, and then 1 was introduced by Rep. Woodson. So Rep. Woodson's version is HB 1903, and that was heard already. And then the Senate version is SB 3087, and that was also heard and passed with amendments in the first committees. As for the other bills that we're tracking, those are the ones that are directly related to EOEL. We do have a few that are related to DHS Child Care Program Office directly, including a subsidy bonus program, contracted child care slots, and then a bill for the preschool open doors priority timeline. And then we do have a harm to children registry, which also now names EOEL specifically in it, which would identify the adults or teachers that have harmed children so that there's better streamlined communication between schools and departments. on those individuals. And then we are tracking a few other bills that pertain to the field inadvertently, such as tax credits for teachers. There's a lot. So teachers, grant program for businesses that want to help employees with childcare or component care expenses, caregiving expenses, and then quite a few others. So again, if anyone is interested, that bill tracking sheet has everything that we're tracking, including what we are submitting testimony on. So that's indicated with either a Y for yes or an M for maybe. Maybe just means that we'll keep tabs on the bills for now. And then should they move forward, we will consider submitting support. So to date, we have submitted testimony on 19 bills and have attended 10 hearings in the last 2 weeks. And then just a couple of deadlines to note. So February 16th is first lateral and March 1st is first decking for bills. So essentially what this means is for bills to continue moving, the deadline is fast approaching. So EOEL's priority bills have moved. They just have to be heard in finance. Finance has their hearings on the 5-day recess, which will be coming up at the end of this month. So we're just tracking all of the bills and making sure that we're staying top of all of the hearing notices that get posted, and attending and submitting both written and oral testimony. But happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have questions for Jordana? Carrie, did you have a, oh, I see, you're just saying thank you and to the group. There are an incredible number of bills to be tracking at this point, and when we get to the advocacy stage, we need to be thinking about how the framework aligns with those particular bills. We as a board have submitted testimony only on the two that are directly affecting EOEL with regard to facilities and expansion and the changing of the name of pre-plus to early learning and the bills regarding public facilities for use by EOEL. So we'll talk a bit more about those later. Any questions for Jordana before she runs away from us? All right, thank you, Jordana. Good luck with your testimony this afternoon. We'll now return to the agenda as it was presented, and the second item of business that we have is to review and approve the minutes from the January 19th, 2024 meeting. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We've had a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes as presented. Take a few minutes to quickly review them, and then I'll call for your vote. Is there any discussion or recommended changes to the minutes? Hearing none and seeing nothing in the chat, we'll vote to approve the January 19th minutes as presented. Selma?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Okay, Iolani? Not here yet. Megan?
Aye.
May?
Aye.
I vote aye. Napua?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Thank you. Mari? Carrie?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved as circulated. We can move to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the public comment opportunity. Reminder that there is a 2-minute time limit and all comments must be pertinent to the items on the agenda. Is there any public comment at this point in the meeting? Seeing none, we'll continue with the agenda.
I see Deb's hands up.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Deb?
Hi. Thank you. It's nice to see you all. Sorry, I'm also at the Capitol. It's a little bit loud here because we have hearings. I submitted written testimony. I hope you all have it as well for comment. But I hope in your deliberations today around public policy, you will consider supporting the paid family leave bills that are moving through the legislature this year. There is a ton of support and research, years of research around how paid family leave is fabulous policy for families with young children, both health benefits as well as economic benefits. And then just briefly, the bills that we are talking about this year are what's considered a social insurance model, which is what the other states, we have 13 states and DC that now have this type of program, meaning everyone pays in a small payroll deduction that gets taken out like how we do Social Security and Medicare, goes into a public trust fund administered by the state. And then when you have a claim for birth of a new baby, caregiving that you need to do for any family members, you submit a claim to the state and you're paid out. So it's not requiring employers to cover you the whole time. It's out of a fund. So that's all. I'm happy to answer questions at any time. Thanks.
Thank you, Deb. Any other public comment? All right, then we'll move to the continuation of the ELEL updates, and I'll turn it over to Yuko.
I don't need the speaker. Hi, I just want to make sure, can you hear me? Yes, okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Here are the updates between the last month and this month for the board. So I'd like to have Ian start first on action item number 1 from the roadmap on workforce development and support.
Thank you, Yuko. I'm Ian Okamoto, Workforce Development Specialist with EOEL, and I would like to share an update regarding the Early Childhood Educator Stipend Program. On February 1st, we received the report for fall 2023 from the College of Ed at UH Manoa per our MOA with them. That kind of shares the final report of the fall semester and participants in the program. So there were a total number, I think as was previously reported, total number of 53 recipients for the stipend. And the new information to share is that the awards, which covers the tuition and fees, totaled $101,196.94. And so to date, there's a total number of program recipients of 55, and total award expenditures was $125,592.94. And we actually have a bit more information that I could share, but I think just wanted to give a high level overview.
I have a question for Ian. Is that all right to ask that?
Yeah.
Ian, do we have a sense of where in the cycle of getting a degree these folks are who receive these stipends? I'm trying to think about the pipeline getting ready.
Right. That's a great question, Bob. I haven't had an opportunity to kind of really break it down, but just as quickly kind of reviewing it, I think we have a spread of folks. We have folks who are, and I think we have quite a few folks who are already in the field, and so I will definitely get more information regarding that and be able to share that, the kind of breakdown in terms of where folks are in engagement.
I think that might be helpful in taking a look at the expansion out of the classrooms and the needs that we're going to get a sense of where that stands. Thank you.
I agree, and I think that we can also have data on whether these people are currently in the early care and education system and are trying to elevate themselves within, or if they're sitting outside, because I did see some preliminary data that we had seen, but I think that we can calculate that in terms of, are they currently sitting in like a community care space or in, or are they in a public space? Because I saw some preliminary data that also had people who were taking the courses, but were not necessarily part of EOEL in a public space yet. But the commitment to children begins after they finish. So it looks like there's other people out there who are interested in this type of credential.
Okay, thank you.
But we can grab that for next.
Yeah.
And then, so there's a lot of ledge things going on right now. Jordina did do an overview, but in terms of workforce development and support, we did support SB 2603 and HB 1964 companion measures. And this is basically about childcare worker subsidy and bonus program. And this was also a recommended legislative approach in our roadmap. The next one about addressing facilities for early care and education programs. These are EOEL's priority bills. There's the SB and the HB. The first two were part of governor's message. The second one was an introduction by Representative Woodson. And this is to be able to expand early. So right now, EOEL is able to offer pre-plus contracts. And so the term pre-plus is actually not defined in EOEL statute. So we were able to actually change it to early learning facilities, which is actually a good thing too, because now it expands the age of the children who can also be served. And so that's what these bills are for. Lane, can you share this?
Sure. So as part of action item number 2, addressing facilities for ECE programs, the School Facilities Authority, the EOEL, continues to work with the School Facilities Authority and its contracted consultant Bowers and Kubota to complete the 44 classroom renovations as part of the state's Ready KP initiative. At present, a handful of classrooms have already been completed as part of the renovation process, and a few more are in the renovation stage right now, and a few more behind that are in the process of begin that classroom renovation stage.
I also wanted to highlight one more thing. So we did have a pre-plus RFP that did go out. And so the proposals have been evaluated and now it's under review by the procurement branch. So there should be some sort of decision sometime soon. I also wanted to highlight in action item number 3. So funding for the early care and education system. So there was an opportunity that came up that it ended up where both early childhood action strategy and EOEL actually made known that we were interested in this fiscal mapping project. And then they came back and said, hey, do you know somebody else in your state is also interested? And then we ended up getting connected together. So we submitted a joint letter of interest. Basically, we think we have a very strong application to be able to take a look at the fiscal map for Hawaii. And basically what this is really taking a look at what kind of money is currently available now, where is it going, and how is it being utilized? And so at any point along the way, there could be either increased efficiencies or access to be able to utilize those funds to address gaps that we currently see. And so we are very excited and we are very hopeful that we will be selected for this fiscal mapping project. So the vision right now of the children's funding, the vision of the children's funding project is basically that they envision the nation where all children and youth thrive, because communities maintain equitable, coordinated, and sustainable funding for comprehensive programs and services. And we know that that's a really big, that Hawaii is very aligned with that vision. So again, I wanted to thank Early Childhood Action Strategy for making it known that they were interested. And then it just so happened that we got paired together, and so we submitted a joint application. I believe they're going to notify us of selection by the end of this month. So I'm hoping to report next month that we were selected. I hope. Lane, can you speak to this?
Yes, so as part of action item number 3 again, so the DHS Preschool Open Doors program, the new Preschool Open Doors administrative rules have been approved and released for the state, and the approval date that is stamped on the rules is January 12th, 2024. So a few of the highlights of the rules, I guess the significant highlights from the rules are that there is a new child care payment rate structure. So as you can see from the slide deck, previously in the 2017 version of the rules, it was $919 for accredited and licensed group child care center providers, and now that number is $1,500 or $1,500. And likewise, $795 for non-accredited and licensed group child care center providers, and it's now $1,200, and $1,500 for Hawaiian Medium Center-based care providers. And the other significant change that they did make to it is the new POD eligibility threshold. Previously, it was up to 200% of the federal poverty guidelines, and that was based on the federal poverty guidelines for 2013. So they did two things with the change to the rules, is that they increased the eligibility limit to 300% of the federal poverty guidelines, and they have changed the federal poverty guidelines that they'll be referencing every year to the most recent one for January 1. So this year it's going to be January for the rules that were, the guidelines that were approved for 2023, because the 2024 guidelines were released on January 17th, 2024. So per the rules, it's going to be 1 year back, but the next year, come January 1, it will be updated to the 2024, and likewise, every year it will be updated. So it'll be 300% of the January 1st federal poverty guidelines for this upcoming program year. So this program year will track the fiscal year, so 2024 to 2025. So beginning July 1, 2024 is when these new dollar amounts and thresholds will kick in for those that are eligible. So everybody that is interested, you should take a look, because the eligibility thresholds, for example, for a family of 4 under the newly updated guidelines that will be available for this upcoming program year is about $103,000. So likewise, every single, I guess the way that the federal poverty guidelines work is that it is a household base. So it goes 1, 2, all the way to 8. And after you get to a household of 8, then you have to add a certain dollar amount to each household member above that. But basically, I think as of this year, the highest I believe the highest one that might be available for a family of 8 looks to be roughly $163,000. Oh wait, sorry. 280. Wait, family of 8, $174,000. So that is the threshold that you can kind of gauge.
Thank you. So addressing program quality improvement and maintenance. So action item number 4. So under this, our legislative approach was to support HB 2683, and we will be supporting SB 2937. And what this does is repeal the sunset date for the exemption of laboratory school programs of the Hawaiian Language College at the University of Hawaii at Hilo from state English medium standards, assessments, performance ratings, staff qualifications, and staff training requirements. In the area of family support, Mikako, can you speak to this, please?
Oh, yes, I thank you, Hugo. This is to update on the data collection for kindergarten students preschool experience pursuant to Act 46. Last year in December, we analyzed the preschool experience data, and Hugo presented the analysis to the P20 Council. Our analysis suggested that the data collection may require some modifications. This week, we met with DOE's Deputy Superintendent Armstrong and her team to discuss the possibilities in making modifications to the form and the distribution of the forms and such. We'll be double checking with other reporting requirements, and we'll be making modification and data collection to meet the reporting requirements set by Act 46. Thank you.
And so one other thing we wanted to highlight is so we had put out a FCIL RFP, but midstream, we had 2 sites that could no longer host it due to space requirements of their campus. So we had to reissue it. And so now it is again posted on HANS, and the last day to accept proposals is Wednesday, February 21st. For
Okay.
special.
Carrie has a question.
I'm so
Okay,
sorry.
Carrie?
Sure, thanks, Yuko. Just a quick question on FCIOs. Are they required through this funding to operate on DOE campuses? Or can they operate in a different location?
So right now, this current FCIL is for 2 identified programs on DOE campuses. We can go through the process to look at sites that are not on DOE campuses, but we have to run that through the procurement branch, but we have 2 open things happening right now. It's a little bit much, but we will take a look at that as soon as these 2 are cleared out. So for special needs and early intervention, I just wanted to draw your attention to this document that came out the end of last year, but it's a policy statement on inclusion of children with disabilities and early childhood programs. At the very bottom of the slide is a hot link where you can actually get straight to it. But the one part that this is in the conclusion, this snip right here that you see on the screen is from the conclusion of this document. But I thought it was really interesting right in the middle where it says, as the country continues to move forward on the critical task of expanding access to high quality early childhood programs for all young children, it's imperative that children with disabilities be included at the onset of each of these efforts so they can have equal opportunities to benefit fully from these experiences. Inclusion supports children with disabilities in reaching their full potential. So there are some recommendations in this joint document, so feel free to click the link and read through the document. And Alohi, can you please give us an update on the PDGB5 grant, please?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So for the PDGB5 grant, we are on year 2. And overall, we are working on our annual performance progress report for year 1. So that has to be submitted by March. And then as far as for some updates for activity 3, which focuses on parent and family engagement, we've supported 4 sets of 4 workshops with Embracing Your Journey Parents Workshop. So if you think back to our last grant, we supported printing and distribution of this material and some of the other workshops. COVID had to change some things. So this is in a way to kind of sustain that activity from our first PDG. Secondly, we also are ongoing with supporting the Parent Leadership Training Institute that HCAN hosts. So far we have 23 families recruited, and 17 of those families have been able to come to the initial event. For workforce, some of our PDGB5 support team members are working, have attended DHS infant toddler work group and shared information about the infant toddler caregiver certificate pathway. That's at the College of Education or with the UH Manoa. And then we also had a Hawaii team that attended their final. So they completed a series of community of practices with the National Early Care Education Workforce Center. So now they're gone through that, they're gonna be working on an action plan for, I believe, centering around policy and compensation. I may be wrong, but so we'll see how that goes. And then program quality improvement, which is our activity 5. Some of our team members were able to have a discussion with DHS as they develop an infant toddler center staff waiver requirement. So it is draft at this point, but it is looking at caregiver, lead caregivers, and the directors for infant toddler centers. So that's it as far as updates. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alohi. And that's the end of our updates. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask for any kinds of clarifications you might need.
All right, are there any questions for the EOEL staff? I have one, Lane, probably for you, and I'm wondering, has there been any conversation about the maximum amount that you can get, the 1,500, being available to within the private sector in such a way, and for the POD, that they don't have to raise tuition in order to qualify for receiving that amount?
That's per my understanding of the rules is that the way that the payment rate is calculated is you choose the lower of whatever the price that is charged to the family, or the $1,500, whichever is lower. So if the price charged by the provider is below $1,500, say $1,100, then $1,100 will be the cap at what will be paid. So again, this is more of reflect or responding to whatever the market is. So if the price is lower, then the amount paid will be lower. If the price is higher than $1,500, then it will be $1,500. But it all depends on what child care provider is selected by the individual families.
All right, so I think the tuition has to be at least at that rate in order to, it gets capped at where that tuition rate is.
Anything above $1,500, that becomes the responsibility of the family. So let's say that the tuition or the fees charged to the family is $2,000. So the family will get $2,000, and the family will be responsible for finding a way to pay for that extra $500 from their own resources.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have any questions for staff? I don't see anything in the, boy, you have a question. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Sorry guys for my camera off. I'm having really bad Wi-Fi on Hawaii Island. It's my area, it's pretty rainy. But this question is regard to PDGB 5. How are the payments going out to our community partners? Are there any delays or have they all been paid?
So in terms of PDGB 5 payments, EOEL does not issue any payments. So I can check with the people who do issue payments, so that becomes on our partner side. So let me check on that and I can get back to you.
Mahalo.
Carrie, you say you have the same question, but I'm not sure, wondering if we are on track means.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I think for any of our federal money that's coming through, are we able to get the funds out? I know that's hard. So just making sure we're on track.
Okay.
I can include that in our next update.
All right. I don't see any others. I will acknowledge, I want to make sure we know, Mari, I see that you're here, so I'm making you present and we'll include you in the votes going forward. The next item on the agenda is the Early Learning Board's legislative advocacy and the policy priorities framework, which was sent to you. Just to orient our new members to the process, the Early Learning Board does submit testimony on a regular basis, generally in alignment with EOEL, although we don't always give testimony on the same bills. To date, the only bills we have given any support for have been related to, as I mentioned earlier, the proposal that came to us earlier on expansion of public facility usage for early learning, and that we had approved as a board because there was no guidance from the board. The result of the fact that the chair made an assumption that should not have been made, that we would probably not be sitting here doing advocacy this year. It would be another board sitting here. So I'm presenting to you a copy of last year's framework of priorities, which were developed around the building blocks and actually do align pretty well with the roadmap. I think if you look at them side by side, with suggesting that we continue to utilize this framework to help inform which bills and what kinds of bills we will support. Because bills come in very quickly and there isn't a great deal of turnaround time, to have discussions within the board about every single bill that appears, and we actually wouldn't probably have the time to do that this year, given the number. The framework is used to guide decisions about which bills the board would consider supporting. The chair is charged generally with creating the testimony that's submitted in collaboration with the Executive Office on Early Learning. So this is the way the process has functioned. Since we're in a second year of a biennium, it also seemed to make sense that these policy priorities would remain as top priorities. So I'm presenting them to you and asking for approval to utilize this framework of policy priorities to support bills as they move through the legislature and to track those that are most relevant to the systems building that our work is all about. So I make the motion to approve the use of the framework of policy priorities for the 2023-24 legislative sessions. Is there a second?
I'll second, Bob. Oh, sorry.
Thanks. I'm going to open the floor for discussion now.
Bob, minor technicality, but it's just 2024 session, right?
Yeah, it really should. And yeah, it's just that we use them for both sessions. That's what I was trying to communicate. Yeah. I didn't want people to think that I created a new set and took credit for that. Anyone have any reservations about using this framework? All right, hearing none, then I'm going to ask you all to vote on the approval of utilizing the framework of policy priorities presented to you to help inform decisions about bills for which testimony will be given during the 24th session. Selma?
Aye.
Erin?
Aye.
Okay, yeah, Lenny? Megan?
Aye.
May?
Aye.
I vote aye. Napua?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
Mari?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Thank you for the approval to move forward with the framework and utilize it for advocacy for bills. You heard the overview that was given already by Jordana earlier, and most of those bills that EOEL is supporting right now do fit within the framework. And I've done a crosswalk between the two in terms of the bills. And I think that you can assume that the Early Learning Board will pursue the similar bills to the ones that she suggested. We've also had some additional bills that have not come from the EOEL. They are tracking them, I believe, but have not begun to support them that we've been asked to take a look at. The first one we heard from HCAN in written testimony and also in oral testimony today, bills related to family leave, and they are very specific. There is a broad number of bills around family leave, but these are specific bills which related to the insurance programs that Deb was sharing with us. And it's difficult to figure out where these might fit unless one looks at the health, safety, and well-being, and perhaps the very first bullet point to support children, family health, and safety provisions, since the argument is that family leave provides the opportunity to sustain families, to provide a more balanced support. And actually, there have been some studies done around the benefits to the physical and mental health of families when parental leave is provided. So that's one that's sitting out there that we have been asked to consider. I'm going to make a motion to that effect. And then I would like to know if there is a second and we can have some discussion. So the motion is that ELB would support specific family leave bills that are related to HB 1768, SB 2474, HB 1658, and HB 2757, which I realize you don't have in front of you. So you would have to be trusting that those would be the kinds of bills that you could be supportive of. So I'm going to make the motion that we move for advocacy in our legislative agenda and support family leave bills and those specific for because of the way they are designed and the recommendation of HCAN. Is there a second to that motion?
This is Erin, I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Bob, I have a question
Sure.
that has come up over the years related to paid family leave. And I guess I'll ask the question to members of the board who this would impact. So I know that this would impact our community-based preschools. And so I would have a question around any concern there.
And I'm not sure I understand what the concern is.
So that's a workforce challenge when you support paid family leave. And I'm curious
I
what small businesses, small childcare and preschool businesses think about this. I personally support it, but I want to be mindful of their business model.
So the financial impact then is a key piece. All right, thank you.
Financial and also just workforce. If they don't have people that can come in to teach when teachers go out on paid family leave, there's a workforce impact too.
Okay. Any other comments or observations?
I have a question to what Terry just said. So is that possible to get the idea from those small schools that what may be able to do? Or is that comes first before this has to move forward? I know I personally agree with this too, but if that was a raised question and if this move forward and then pass, it's not really fair for the small schools. So what would be your suggestion, or anybody?
Okay.
This is Stephanie. I have a question too, related to this and it's if we've given enough public notice that this is an agenda item that the board will be voting on so that smaller schools and other community-based organizations are able to provide public comment.
Yeah, and I just would remind everyone that we've been asked to consider it. We have not committed to it, and we can say we want it on the agenda for future conversations. That's certainly a legit way to go with all of this. I'm putting it out there as a request, that's all. Any others? All right, let's go ahead and take a vote and see what the pulse is of the group on moving forward with support of this bill, given in light of the reservations that have been expressed and perhaps the concern that more study needs to be done and thinking about it beforehand, it can become a separate item on a future agenda. Selma?
I'm a little confused because I do support it. And yet I also appreciate what Stephanie said and wondering if we can bring it up in a future, like our next meeting. I don't know if it will be too late by then, but just to make sure we get public comment.
Okay. We can also do a support the intent kind of thing. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say, Selma?
Sure, I support the intent.
Okay. Erin?
Aye.
Okay, Iolani?
I'm so sorry, I just jumped in, so I'm not really sure what's being discussed. So I think I should abstain from this one. Thank you.
You want to hold off? Or can I fill you in quickly?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Did you feel comfortable giving a vote, or were you saying you need?
No, I think I'm going to abstain because I'm not sure where we are.
Oh, abstain. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Okay, thank you. Megan?
Yeah, I'm a little unprepared to vote, so I have some reservations as well. I guess vote no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey?
Aye.
I'm going to support the intent, but think we should revisit it. So I guess I'm saying no. Napua.
Ole. Support the intent, but we need to revisit. So I think mine is also no.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
Support the intent with a request to revisit.
Okay. Murray?
I support the intent and the revisit as well. Thank you.
Okay. Carrie?
Support the intent and revisit, please.
Okay. So the motion does not pass. We need to come back around to it. We can support the intent. And I will put it on the agenda for the March meeting. And we can ensure that there's an opportunity for direct public comment around this particular bill and the impact it may have. Good questions raised. Thank you, everyone. Carrie, you had another.
So sorry, I was just gonna comment about policy since we're on the topic related to HEICC, and I don't know, it's just information sharing that these three bills will be supported by the Early Intervention Coordinating Council related to children with special needs, birth to 3. And so just for consideration for the board to take a look at moving forward.
All right. So would you like that to be on the agenda for the next meeting?
Please.
Okay. We can do that.
Thank you.
All right. Any others? We have no other urgings for bills to support, so we will follow through with the framework we talked about and bring forward at the next meeting Carrie's request along with the revisit on the parental and family leave issue to ensure that there's an opportunity for public comment around that particular item. All right, I'm going to close out this section of the meeting unless somebody has anything in addition to add. All right, let's move to item 6 on the agenda, which is the issue of toilet training that we were asked to provide some input on. And I wanted, before we started, to highlight the issues, concerns, questions raised in the WAM hearing of January 16th, so that we can be clear what it is we've been asked to consider and the legislative issues that were raised during the course of that particular briefing. And I'm summarizing them and not giving the actual commentary. You've all had an opportunity to review the YouTube video of the hearing if you chose to do that. There really were 4 areas that were expressed specifically, affecting teachers, affecting children, affecting parents, and affecting government as we look through it. The issue around teachers that was raised was one of concerns about teacher stress and displeasure, really, with not being able to, in their words, do the education that they were hired to do. That was one issue that was raised. And related to that was, if a teacher is having challenges in this area, how do they get support, or where do they get help? And would that response to those questions involve any cost issues? With regard to children, the issue that was raised was that teasing and bullying of children was sometimes the result of not being toilet trained and needing attention by the teacher in order to be able to continue their stay in the classroom. The issue around parents is whose responsibility is it to toilet train a child? And the concern was that parents are the ones who should be responsible, and this ties in directly to the role of government, and government should not be responsible for toilet training children. Related to the government issue was one of the potential of liability. One member of the Senate WAM committee indicated that the situation provided an opportunity for a lawsuit, particularly around the issue of sexual abuse. This chair of WAM suggested that ELB have a conversation about where it thinks the policy should be. We're not being asked to define a policy, but where we think the policy should be. And I think before we have open it up for general discussion and response from the board to that particular question, I'd like to invite Yuko to share her thoughts and perhaps some of her responses with regard to the conversation that was held during the WAM hearing. Yuko?
Yeah, sure. So in EOEL, specifically, our teachers currently have to have a state-approved teacher education program, a SATEP, in early childhood education. And our education assistants have to have a CDA or the 3 courses leading to CDA or be enrolled and working towards that goal. When we, in our conversations with all of the credentialing programs at the university, they all utilize the NAEYC professional standards for educators, and this topic is covered. And for the lead teacher, it is a part of their practicum. That's part of their state-approved teacher education program. So the first thing that we do know that it is a part of their learning. And And then beyond that credential, once they're in the classroom, our early learning state office teachers do visit sites, and they have worked out, you know, like helping with scheduling, helping with, you know, like controlling the flow of children, but because the issue of children not being fully able to use the bathroom yet was already present in EOEL before we accepted 3-year-olds. So it has always been a developmental milestone in our program. And so that's where it stands with teachers. But going along with that, our early learning state office teachers are more than available to people who might need additional support, and EOEL is always available to help if there's people who seem to be experiencing some kind of challenge with that. In terms of the children, so we know that teasing and bullying, especially in public schools, there are very strict guidelines with teasing and bullying. So both myself and our early learning state office teacher, the educational specialist, were not aware that children were being teased and bullied. So I did reach out to the complex area superintendent and the 2 principals. I'm assuming that these are Molokai schools because that's what it seemed to be, because the names of the schools and the teachers were not identified at the hearing. And so I reached out to the complex area superintendent and the 2 principals, and I did not get a response back. So I did send them the link to the hearing. I did tell them what was stated, but I didn't hear anything back. And so we will see where that goes. And then for parents, in terms of responsibility, I don't see a child not meeting a developmental responsibility as a parent not doing their job. I think that parents do their best with what they have. I think that everybody many parents want their children to be, of course, going along on their developmental milestones, but sometimes try as you might, children need a little bit extra help. And so we are there. Additionally, the priority categories that EOEL focuses on in our statute encompasses a range of children and families, and we accept people as they come. In terms of liability, so our teachers and educational assistants are all DOE employees. Teachers belong to the HSTA union and EAs belong to the HDA union. And so there are certain processes and protocols in there. We also did ask for EOEL to be named in the committee for the harm to student registry. And so that's a HB 2043 and SB 2475. And so we know that the version 1, I think they did insert EOEL in there right now. So we feel that that's a step forward to do our part to try to make sure that our children are safe in our settings.
Okay. Thank you, Yuko. I am going to open up for conversation from board members. Remember, the question we're being asked by the chair of WEM is to address the question of where should the policy be around toilet training in light of the issues raised and the responses that you've heard from Yuko. So other comments that people would like to share?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? I apologize. The policy in question is one just around toileting, potty training? Okay.
Yeah, it was very specific to that, because that's correct, isn't it?
Sorry, I want to be clear. Okay.
Yeah. Carrie?
I'll start us off. I'm sure a lot of people have comments. I just wanted to share a couple things. One is, a question for me is, do we have a policy of inclusion? with children that are not potty trained. A lot of states do have just a statement, and I'm wondering if that needs to be legislated. I'd be surprised. I would imagine that EOEL could just create a program policy to suffice. So that would be something I would propose, just make it really clear. My second comment is the state's at a greater risk of lawsuits by not including, especially for ADA, American with Disabilities Act. And if we're talking about inclusion, I think the state's putting itself in jeopardy. So those are my 2 comments.
Thank you. Other board member comments?
I would agree with Carrie, and I would just share my overarching concern about the state's role in 3-year-old education with the prevalence of this thinking and certain attitudes about it.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that, you know, toilet training is part of early learning. We who work with children would know that, you know, these 3-4-year-olds will need the guidance from all of us to succeed. So toilet training is part of child development, is part of early learning. So we should support these children so they can thrive.
This
Thank
is
you.
Mari. I agree. And then as a developmental behavior pediatrician, I know some kids who are very well academically, not necessarily toilet trained. I think that that's a little bit different, no matter how you are capable of the schoolwork that they want you to do. Toilet training is something else. They may not care. They just play with a dirty diaper. That's how they are developmentally. Eventually they do. So, and then this is a task for the child. So, you know, as an educator, I think we have to ask the teacher to teach. Both you and I are toilet trained already. So it's not, you know, it's how we're going to teach them. I just wanted to add that too. But there are discrepancies. The development doesn't go all the same way all at once.
Thank you, Mary.
This is Erin. I really just want to echo everyone's comments so far. And I do think that from a mental health perspective, it's really important for children to have mastery over their own bodies. And that does, and I know Yuko did say such things in her response during the hearing of just how these are skills that are setting children up for later in life. And so if we put undue pressure onto families to have their child potty trained by a certain date, that can cause a lot of stress and issues within the household that might then be detrimental to further development. So I do think it's really important for us to have a more inclusionary stance in terms of toilet training.
Thank you, Erin. Are there other members who would like to weigh in on the issue?
This is Solma. I completely agree with everything everybody has said so far, and would focus on the inclusion aspect and the idea of the statement that Carrie had mentioned earlier. I'm also wondering if this is beyond a policy, it's more of a request, because we are knowing that this is part of the learning, this is part of the development. What are the support structures that are needed for our early teachers to be able to support better if they are struggling in this area? And so maybe that's more around the resources and the support that's needed so that this can happen, but not putting a forced timeline on a child and a family in varying circumstances to try to have a milestone met.
Thank you, Sol.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is Maria again. I just wanted to mention, I think most of you know that they are put out some of the programs called toilet training boot camp in different islands. And then actually some of them are arrested. That is kind of like but there are lots of people, hundreds of people. This is Hawaii. They actually sign up for it, paying the money to get it done. And then the provider was actually arrested because they did it over and beyond and actually harmful. So I think we have to make sure those things doesn't happen. This is a kid's task that they have to learn. So I think the community's mindset, we can probably change them by telling them what we think it's within normal range as well.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? I want to be sure we give everybody an opportunity, and that we will be sharing the minutes from this conversation with the WAM chair as requested, so that they do hear the consensus of the board around this issue. And I will make a recommendation at the end, having heard what people have to say. So I want to encourage anyone who has some input to give it. And certainly if somebody feels that we should be addressing this in a particular way, that opportunity is provided.
Hi, this is Erin again. Could I add one more comment? Sure. I do think that another thing that was brought up is how this is a skill. Dr. Mari already stated that. I believe that Yuko mentioned that in her response also, about how this is a skill for the child to learn. And that, we could be opening this conversation up for the denial of any skill if we are to label this skill as one that would be reason for denial of entry, which is kind of akin to what Carrie was mentioning as well. So I do think that if we can help the Ways and Means Committee to understand that this is a developmental skill that does, it would potentially cause grounds for other skills to be labeled as reasons why children might not be able to be admitted into the program.
Okay. Thank you, Erin.
I have a clarifying question. When you were giving the overview, you mentioned something around the concern of liability and lawsuit. I think you said sexual abuse. Is that what had come up? Is that what you had said?
Yeah, that's what the senator said. That was the issue that particular senator was raising.
And Bob, it was also around bullying.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for sexual abuse to occur. Was basically the thrust of what was being said, I think. Carrie, did you want to add something around that?
Yeah, I was just going to add that he was saying that kids will tease each other. Imagine if a child pulls down another child's pants and sees a diaper or a pull-up, that child will be bullied. And so there's also bullying liability that he was citing for risk.
So if it was, I don't recall hearing the sexual abuse part, but if that's part of what this the concern is, there's not a correlation, there wouldn't be, between reaching a developmental milestone and that happening. So I just want to state that. And then the other is around the bullying and teasing. That is that's an issue that happens all the way through school, and it can happen and should never be connected to a developmental milestone being met. And then there's other ways to deal with that. So as opposed to forcing certain milestones.
This is Dr. Uehara. I'm sorry, this is Mari. So, the funny thing is, the child is wearing the diaper, so he may get bullied. So, you should be toilet trained. That's the logic. It's completely wrong to me. If the child is bullied, how are you going to not let them bully it? So, that's an adult problem. It's not the kid's problem. And then because I don't want to preach all those people who knows all of this, but to get able to get or use the bathroom all by yourself, there are other things involved, right? Your nervous system has to be able to work so that you know what's going on down there. You have to have skills to take off and on the clothes. you have to have a stability in the motor skills to sit on the toilet for a little while. So it's, just elimination is one thing, but it encompasses everything. And then the parents, the kids has to have also the skills to please other people. I'm happy I did this. And then himself, right? So, it's just not one. It's just you're going to make it or not. So I think the people has to understand those developmental skills that it comes along with it too. I'm so sorry, but you all know this. I just have to say it out loud. It's so frustrating.
Thank you,
I
Mary.
have to mention one more thing. Now I see the parents and then they, they try to aim for 3 years to the completion for the toilet training. Parents are told, well, if you're not done by that date, that's okay, but there are extra charge. So they are actually charging the parents for diaper change. I just wanted to share with you about this. That's already happening because parents tell me.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, I want to answer your question. The actual thing was, where does the board think the policy should be? They're not asking us to define a policy. They're asking us where it should be, and I'm not so sure we have the authority, frankly, to define a policy around this. Nor, I don't even know if EOEL has the authority to do that. Since the legislature, it may be a legislative policy type of statement, and we could make a recommendation, but we haven't really pursued that issue yet. So that can be. So how I interpreted what was being asked is get the board's mana'o about this situation. And the current policy does not require potty training. That's really what we're responding to. Does that make sense?
So is the question then, are we being asked to comment on pre-K, state public pre-K admission policies and whether or not they should include potty training as an eligibility requirement? And if that is the question, I think, are we voting on that today? And then if that is the question, is it helpful, or would it have been helpful for EOEL staff to create a clear memo for the public, for others, that some of the research behind it and some of the resources that are available. So creating clear guidance to go along with the policy. But I just want to try to get clear on what it is that we are or are not voting on right now.
We're voting on answering the question, where do we think the policy should be? Which doesn't tell us a great deal. But essentially, I think what we're going to vote on is, does this board think that there should be a requirement, or do we go with the fact that there is not a requirement as it currently sits? I don't know if that clarifies and makes it worse.
Sorry, this is Napua. Sorry, my internet is very unstable. This is Napua. I'm thinking we should really approach this from a developmental skill, any developmental skill acquisition versus being very, very specific to potty training, viewing potty training as an acquisition or as a milestone. So we don't get pigeonholed in the event something happens specifically to potty training. Very similar to what Erin shared earlier, that language really is in alignment with child development. And as an early child education professional, that is what we are taught and what our passion and our beliefs are. And that's why we get educated and we go into the field. It's about child development and seeing it as a continuum versus as at 3 months, every child does this. At 2 years, every child does this. Mahalo.
Okay.
Hi, Bob. I wanted to piggyback on Napua. I really, I think she summarized it all. Like, it's on the child development, right? We focus on child development, and every child develop very differently. I think what EOEL have right now to support all the, the children coming in, it's perfect. It's what we have right now. It's good for the EOEL, where, that's what the statute is on support the equality of all children's learning. So I think we should support that. What they have, or what EOEL have already.
Thank you, Nick.
Can someone please share the proposed policy that we are editing or not editing? Like, where's the thing that we're responding to?
All right, I'm going to give you a statement, see if this helps. Because I've been playing around with how do we say this. And I'm thinking that based upon what everyone has said here, and also the written testimony we received, we did receive 7 pieces of written testimony, 3 from private citizens and 4 from agencies, HCAN, Patch, ECAS, and the Office of Wellness and Resistance, all arguing that we support the current eligibility for EOEL's public pre-K. So I'm suggesting that, given that and this conversation, that this might be the recommendation we make to EOEL to share with WAM, that we maintain the current state policies regarding enrollment in public pre-kindergarten and provide the professional support needed to foster inclusive environments respectful of children's developmental needs. That's the position I'm urging us to consider taking. And the only requirement right now for eligibility to enter the public pre-K is an age. How old are you, and by a certain date. And then there is a priority category of at-risk children, but that's not an eligibility requirement to be included. So what this would argue is that we would remain the same, not support really the potty training requirement, but suggest that support might be provided as needed to ensure the respect of children's developmental needs. That would be how we might frame it.
Bob, I think for me personally, and I if others disagree, no worries at all, but having listened to that testimony, or not testimony, having listened to that hearing and hearing how ill-informed they are and the assumptions that they make about parents and the assumptions that they make about child development, I would like us to be a little bit more firm and clear. And I did post in the chat New York State's memo that their Department of Education has put out around this very topic, as a potential suggestion of a memo that we could put together. And because this might not be the only time this comes up. And I think the clearer we can be, the better. But I would defer to especially the people that work in this space as to what they think.
Yeah, I'm not so sure though that it should come from us. That I don't see that as a board responsibility. I see the board's responsibility as giving the global frame recommendation, not the specifics. And I realize and appreciate your concern, Carrie, for what is not understood. But I don't see it as our responsibility to be explicit in that particular way.
Oh, I don't, maybe that's, oh, I'm sorry. Maybe that's not us, but maybe it's the Department of Education or it's EOEL, similar to what New York put forward. So I don't know if we want to, what people think of that. I just worry, these are those types of moments where you say, do we put nail something down now in anticipation that this is not the first time or the last time that this will come up. And so that when it does come up next time, we have something really clear. That's
I think we need to pursue who makes that kind of statement. And I don't think it's something we can determine today, frankly. And I, in my conversations with, and guidance from our Deputy Attorney General, I didn't think that it would be in the purview of this board, or actually even in the purview of ELEL, given the way the statute is written. But there may be things that ELEL can consider. But at this point, I would argue that we need to keep it vague, but also clear that we are not recommending a change in the current way things are done. I'm going to actually call the question on this particular issue and ask you all to vote on it. So let me once again read to you what I'm recommending. If you decide that you do not wish to make this recommendation, then I will need some other language from you about where we should go with this. So the recommendation is to maintain the current state policy regarding enrollment in public pre-kindergarten and provide the professional support needed to foster inclusive environments respectful of children's developmental needs. Can I get a second for that, on that recommendation?
This is the Eli, I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any additional discussion? And may I move forward with a vote?
I saw Steve, your hand up. I'm curious.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Maybe I'm a little late on this one, but Bob,
Steve?
was it a formal WAM inquiry or was this just in dialogue with certain WAM members?
It was in the briefing. WAM turned, the chair, Senator Dela Cruz, asked the EOEL to have its board have a conversation around this issue.
Oh, it was directed by Senator Dela Cruz at UCO?
Yes.
Got it. I was just curious whether they followed up with like a formal written inquiry or how it worked.
And we were asked to report back to them, which we did, that it would be discussed at the February 8th meeting because it was too late to get our agenda for the last time.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to move forward with a vote on the recommendation as presented. Selma?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Okay, Yevani?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
May?
Aye.
I vote aye. Napua?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
Okay, the motion has been approved. Hugo, I will write up the actual language and pass it along to you, then, so you can use it in the report back to Lam. Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you, everyone, for the conversation. I know it's a challenging one, and yeah, I have one real concern that I would like to share with you all. I realized I didn't give any input in that conversation, and that is understanding of what the education of young children is all about. Teachers are complaining about toilet training getting in the way of being able to teach. They're not looking at the breadth of their responsibilities of child growth and development, which is helping to teach children about issues of bullying and teasing, help children to develop the skills they need to become effective members of their community, and provide them with the other types of skills that are in a more academic range. And it troubles me that the totality and the wholeness of what's going on is really critical. And it speaks to me about something that I worry about with regard to are the teachers who are sitting in some of these positions, doing so with a background in early childhood development and growth that will allow them to really know when issues are interfering with learning and when issues are supporting learning. I would like to just add that comment to the conversation we just had. The next item on the agenda is a Maui Early Childhood Status Update. Is there any additional information that people have that they wish to share at this point? I don't know how many of you might have seen the Commit to Keiki January 2024 newsletter, but it was a focus on IMUA and the work that they do, and gave a particularly good summary, it seemed to me, about where the status of early learning and early childcare and families were on Maui. And given that this is the 6-month anniversary, this might be a time when people have updates to offer. Does anyone have anything? Oh, Kaina, I see you're there. You have something. Great. We'd love to
Hi,
hear
Bob
from
and
you.
everybody. I do have a couple of updates for you folks. We were able to open the Head Start classroom with 20 children, and that happened on, the blessing was the end of January, and on February 1st, they welcomed their first 5 students, and will open up to 20. We also had our first licensed family childcare reopen in Lahaina. So she is taking 6. The Kapa Alana program looks to opening their doors in about 2 weeks to service the families, and they will be operating out of Royal Lahaina. And then you did make mention of the Imua Discovery Gardens, who is able to operate in Wailuku under a demonstration project. They will be taking 20 students. Right now they have enrolled, and they opened about 2 weeks ago. They have enrolled 15 students, 14 of whom were directly affected by the wildfires. We have connected with the Office of Recovery. The Health and Human Services has a weekly meeting with me to know and understand the early childhood priorities for wildfire. I will be sending out invitations to 4 different information briefing groups that will be held once a month. It will cover the childcare recovery specific. It will cover workforce. It will cover the well-being of children and the young children and their families. And the 4th one is the networking data. So I'm calling that the synergy work group. So invitations and that will come out sometime in the near future, so that folks can understand what each work group's focus, focus priorities are. Those are the main things. There's a lot of things coming. Oh, we did put in a proposal to the SURGE grant, Department of Health SURGE grant, and the collective proposal was for about $6 million. We were awarded $75,000, so are in conversations about exactly what that will propose and support. It will likely fall under the well-being and area of all of the different proposals that came forward. With the remaining proposals that came forward out of that and additional ideas, we are collectively aligning them with the Office of Recovery Early Childhood Priorities, and then seek additional funding where it's appropriate for moving towards the long-term recovery and resilience. I know that's a lot to take in somewhat of a short time, but if there's any questions specifically, I'd be okay to answer.
Okay. Any questions for Kaina? Yeah, I think we're all glad to hear that things are moving forward. Kaina, and thank you for taking some time to share them with us, and by thinking of all of you today, given the kind of day it is, and whatever the process is that one goes through at these moments. So is there anything else you would like the board to know at this point?
Nope, I mean, but feel free to contact me if you have specific questions or, there's a lot going on in a lot of different directions. So kind of keeping it all in its boxes or keeping track of it is is essential. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Kaina. Anyone else have anything related to Maui that they wish to share with the group? Right, I'm not seeing any, so let's move to public comment. Is there any additional public comment at this point in the meeting?
Hi, my name is Malia Suchia, and I would like to provide public comment regarding the potty training and toileting. So I just want to say that I worked in family childcare, infant toddler, group childcare for almost 20 years. I'm also a mom of 5. I 100% agree with regard to the policies and inclusion and accepting children and the continuum of child development. So that's where that's what my master's is in as well. But I do want to say, and I do want to comment just from a practical perspective, and I've only worked in community-based programs and family childcare, and I have not worked in the public sector. So I just want to, clarify that. But I do want to say that within the community-based programs that I have worked in, 3-year-old classrooms typically, and I'm going to say generally, right, because this doesn't apply to everybody, but typically have 3 teachers because the lead teacher is leading, the assistant or the aide is helping that child, whatever they're going through. And then there's another support for the teacher. So typically there's 3. The second thing is in regard to the standards and competencies, the standards and competencies do clearly address the need for developmentally appropriate activities and such. But toilet training from the teacher perspective is also a skill. That's also a skill. And there's no curriculum designed around potty training. And I don't know if you could really create a curriculum for that because it's very culturally specific. It's very individualized and it requires that type of individualized attention. And so as we're thinking about, and as we should be very inclusive in welcoming our children from 3 and 4 and up, to be very mindful that the developmental range of a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old is very, very different. And I would like to also point out is, to us to be very cognizant if our facilities are set up in a way to support teachers and students as well in their ability to successfully potty train. So in terms of the facilities, the toilets, the distance from the classroom, and as well as the fact that potty training is on demand. 3-year-olds are not going to go the way maybe 4-year-olds will every 2 hours, every hour and a half. It's on demand. So we have to be cognizant that there will at times be one teacher in a room of 19 other children, potentially. And so as we think about the ways to make this inclusion process a more realistic and practical way, we really have to think about how our teachers are trained to do potty training, because that is a skill, and how it is done in a way that is culturally respectful, developmentally respectful, and as well as the actual facilities and support that the teachers have within the classroom. Because again, typically in community-based classrooms, there will be 3 in the infant toddler, 3-year-old, 2 and 3-year-old classrooms. And so I just wanted to provide that so we can really think about how when we're talking about supports for teachers, the true breadth of what support for these teachers means when we are going to engage in an effective and sensitive way to go about potty training. So that's it. But thank you very much for allowing my comment.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? I don't see any. So we'll move to member updates. Anyone have updates? Steve, did you want to share about the website information that you folks have recently posted? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, was that for me?
Yeah, I was wondering if you wanted to share about the website.
I thought you said a different name. Sure, oh shoot, I wasn't quite ready for that. So we just posted Hawaii Graduates for Hawaii's Future is the new statewide attainment goal. This replaces 55 by 25, which was set by the P20 Council 15 years ago or so. And our new goal, Hawaii Graduates for Hawaii's Future, is a goal that is inclusive of early care and education, which is new. So the sub goals in Hawaii Graduates for Hawaii's Future are an early ed goal, a K-12 goal, a higher ed goal, and then a workforce goal. So it's trying to be more sort of cognizant of not only empowering individual students to succeed and achieve, but also doing so in the context of them being able to stay home and in jobs here in Hawaii, make a living, and aligning workforce development and educational programming with workforce needs. So let me see if I can copy and paste the website in the chat. We do not actually have the early ed data in there yet. We're like, I think on the cusp of doing so. Yuko, is that right? But we do have goals 2 and 3 posted, which are the early ed, I'm sorry, the K-12 and then the higher ed goals. So the early ed folks, as was mentioned earlier, did present to the P20 Council. And a lot of that was around the kindergarten entry assessment data, as well as the prior learning experiences data that's been collected as a result of the new statutory mandate to do so. And then eventually we'll get to our workforce data, which is much more complicated. So that's why we procrastinated and put it off to the last of the 4. And there it is. Thanks for asking, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Anyone else have a member update at this point? I don't see anyone, so we will move to close out the meeting. The agenda outcomes for this meeting include the following. We approve the framework of policy priorities for the 24 legislative session to guide advocacy and testimony. We agreed to revisit the family leave bills issue, and even though there was a support for the intent, the need for greater discussion and to provide an opportunity for public testimony as part of the argument. We also have been asked to include on the upcoming agenda the early intervention salary increases as part of the conversation about whether or not we will support that bill. And we submitted a recommendation to ELB to share with WIM to maintain the current state policy regarding enrollment in public pre-kindergarten and provide the professional support needed to foster inclusive environments respectful of children's developmental needs. Those are the outcomes for today's meeting. Carrie, do you have any good words to leave us with as we say aloha this afternoon?
I do. Can I make one amendment to your outcomes? I did put in chat, there's 2 other early intervention bills that I wanted the board to consider. One is related to increases in ABA rates. And the second was the formation of a focus group within the Department of Health to better support our keiki that are experiencing blindness and deafness.
Can you send me those, email those to me, please, so I can make sure I get them right on the agenda?
Sure.
Thank you.
And so, because I appreciate you all so much, I'm going back to Star Wars. And so the quote for today is, "We had each other, that's how we won." Lando Calrissian, The Rise of Skywalker.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. Hope you all have a good month. Look forward to seeing you in March, which is hard to believe, but that's our next meeting. Aloha.